I expect you to be honest. I expect you to work hard. I expect you to show up on time. That's permission to play values. So by all means, talk about them, have your list, reinforce them, but don't put them up on the wall as a rallying cry. They don't differentiate you. Dunder Mifflin Incorporated provides its customers quality office and information technology products, furniture, printing values, and the expertise required for making informed buying decisions. We provide our products and services with a dedication to the highest degree of integrity and quality of customer satisfaction, developing long-term professional relationships with employees that develop pride, creating a stable working environment and company spirit. So if you didn't know, that's the Dunder Mifflin Incorporated mission statement from the popular Office television show. Now, I'm sure after reading that, you guys are all polishing up your resume and getting ready to apply to Dunder Mifflin. But if you're me, and I think more normal human beings, other than the show being pretty funny, this is just a bunch of word salad that is not getting you excited to come to work. But I got to tell you, that's most mission statements that I think you'll find, because what everybody's trying to do in business is pack everything into their vision and mission and core values and leave nothing out. And of course, never piss anybody off. All right. So that's not how we suggest you do your vision, mission, core values. But first, let's talk a little bit about why those things actually are important, even though most people get them wrong, and most people that work at a company are cynical about them. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Right now, recently, we've been going through on the podcast Dialed In, which is the first part of our flywheel. And the flywheel strategy is a strategy that, quite honestly, you're already deploying, even though you may not be aware of it, you may not be intentional about it, but you are deploying a flywheel strategy. There is a set of things that you are doing, that you are pushing, and over time is creating momentum. Could be for you, could be against you, but you're doing it right now. So we at Vortex, and what we want you to do is to be intentional about building your flywheel. The flywheel is interconnected parts, meaning if you do one piece, the natural byproduct is you hit the next one and the next one and so on. So the first part is actually the most important. And at Vortex, we call that dialed in. It's all about dialing in our team, getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. Now, we've gone over the alignment effect, which is all about hiring for belief, hiring for shared belief. So you're hiring people who already believe what you believe. You're hiring people who already have the behaviors that you have and that you want to reinforce. Okay, well, that stands to reason that you actually believe something already. And that would be your vision, your mission, and your core values. So we're going to break down what that looks like, what it should look like. We're not going to tell you what yours should be. We're going to tell you how to get there. So let's first start with the vision statement. Now, different than Dunder Mifflin on the vision and the mission, our vision statement is to be the catalyst that improves the world through service. That's it. We want to be the catalyst that improves the world through service. So it's short, it's memorable, and it's all about reinforcing a better future where our world at Vortex and what we want to inspire is a future where people look at service as a superpower, not as subservient. Service is our superpower, and we're going to be the catalyst. We're going to be the catalyst here at Vortex, and we're going to be the catalyst to inspire other businesses and hopefully you to use service as a superpower. Now, the vision, if you caught it, what I just said, it's the brighter, better future that you want to create. Now, in my opinion, what you should be doing with your vision and your mission statement, I think this is a feature, not a flaw. I think you want it specific enough, have enough specificity that somebody can actually kind of see it in their mind's eye, but you want to leave it open-ended enough so that you can deploy creativity and you also never reach it. okay? I think it's a North Star that you're always chasing, but you're never gonna get there. I think that's a feature, not a flaw. If it's overly specific, that's wonderful. That's a goal, okay? That's a goal. You know, you've probably heard of SMART goals and things like that, but you have this very specific goal. That's a goal. So the vision is a North Star that you're constantly directionally going after, and you're going to improve and you're going to get better, but you're never going to get there. Just like Lombardi said about perfection, we're chasing it knowing the whole time that we'll probably never fully achieve it. But in doing so, we are going to create a much better future here at Vortex for our customers, our dealers, our employees. So it's the brighter future you want to create, and you want to have it short, sweet, powerful, and inspirational. And certainly it has to be authentic. Now, next up, the mission, how that differs. The mission is all about how we're going to achieve the vision, how we're going to go after the vision. And in our case at Vortex, our mission is CARE. It stands for Create a Rare Experience. Now, there's a lot of reinforcement around what that means. And for us, creating a rare experience is all about creating a very personal, very connected, very memorable, unique, different experience. It's an experience where we want the other person to feel fully seen and valued, because after all, they are important, but they have to feel it. So CARE, create a rare experience, that's a rallying cry as to how we become the catalyst that improves the world through service, okay? So vision is the brighter, better future you want to create, and mission is how you're going to get there. I believe both should be tight, short, inspirational, and authentic. Pretty much the opposite of the Dunder Mifflin mission statement. All right, now let's move on to core values. There's a lot to unpack here in core values. And there's three primary core values. There's core values, okay? There's permission to play values, and there's aspirational core values. Now let's break each one of those down and unpack those. Core values are 3 to 5 core behaviors that you are known for at your organization. So if you were to ask a bunch of employees, you were asked a bunch of customers, they may use different words, but they're essentially all describing you the same way. Hey, all the people at Vortex are this way. When I walk the halls at Vortex, it's like this. When I call somebody on the phone, they're like this. 3 to 5 core behaviors that you already have as an organization that differentiate you from your competitors, and you want to keep them. All right. They don't just differentiate you, because it could be bad. But in this case, differentiation is good. They're unique to you. They're different, and you want to keep them. And we'll talk a little bit about how you figure out what those are. Now, permission to play values. Okay. Permission to play are table stakes. All right. You need to have them. We're going to interview for them. We're going to reinforce them, but they're not going on the wall. All right, I'll get into this later. This is one of our core values. They're not going on a t-shirt, okay? And a good example of a permission to play value is integrity, or working hard, or something like that, or honest. Okay, so here's my thing. In my opinion, you should be honest. You should work hard. You should have integrity. I don't know if we should necessarily celebrate that. Now, maybe in today's day and age, those things are rare. But they shouldn't be the things that differentiate us. They should be table stakes. I expect you to be honest. I expect you to work hard. I expect you to show up on time. That's permission to play values. So by all means, talk about them, have your list, reinforce them, but don't put them up on the wall as a rallying cry. They don't differentiate you. They end up just being background music, vanilla. Integrity is a wonderful word, and to have integrity is a wonderful thing. Integrity is so overused in a core value sense that it's really not going to actually mean something to people when they see it on the wall every day. So that's permission to play. And finally, and this is the one that everybody's eyes get big, is aspirational core values. Aspirational core values is where things go wrong, all right? You aspire to have that value, but you don't as an organization. You may not have that value as a leader. You want it. You want it to go on the wall. You want it to be authentic, but it's not. So a good example of that would be innovative. Let's say that's a core value, okay? But maybe your organization, product-wise, service-wise, you haven't innovated anything in 10 years, and everybody at your place knows it. So when you put innovative on there and you have this really wonderful copy behind it about how you're constantly innovating and thinking of things new and going after new markets and new ideas and introducing new services, guess what happens to your people when they walk by that every single day? They get cynical. They roll their eyes. And that's the worst thing that you could have. And when I tell people about aspirational core values, almost without a doubt, they're like, oh gosh, half our core values are that. All right. So let me tell you the fix, and then we're going to circle back and focus on the core values, the ones that you do want up on the wall, that you already have, that you want to keep. So with aspirational core values, what a lot of times happens is once people kind of understand, oh shoot, we don't have that, I want that. Well, then they say, well, what should I do? Because I still want that as a core value. Absolutely. You can identify that as a core value that you want to have, but you've got to earn it first. So you've got to have a strategy with your leadership team and your managers and say, hey, look, you know, we used to be innovative 20 years ago, and I think that core value made sense then. But you know, since then, a lot of process and procedure has gotten in the way, and we're not innovating, and we're losing maybe market share to our competitors because we're not innovative. We need to be innovative, and let's come up with a strategic plan over the next, and it's probably going to be a year, maybe 18 months, maybe 24 months. We're going to do things along the way. We're going to regroup, but it's our plan to actually earn innovative and earn the right to put it on the wall. And here's the cool thing. Then you get everybody in the process of creating and earning that core value. And then when you roll out that core value, there's no eye rolling, okay? There's no cynicism. They're bought in, and now they're celebrating that core value because they got to be part of creating that core value. So that's what you do in an aspirational core value sense. Now, what I just described there is basically what we call the impact equation, okay? And there's a previous podcast that we did on that. We'll link that in the show notes so you can go to that podcast and watch how to deploy the impact equation. But the impact equation essentially is this. Great ideas are awesome, but what you really need on a big project, and certainly when it comes to your core values or the aspirational core values, you're going to need this. You need buy-in. Buy-in is the differentiator. Buy-in from your team. Everybody who's going to execute on the great idea. And what a lot of leaders do is they're smart and they're spending a lot of time coming up with a great idea. It's not that they don't have a good idea. They very likely have a great idea. The problem is then they just tell everybody, here's my great idea, now go execute it. And they don't have the buy-in because they don't have people's fingerprints all over it. So when we circle back up on the core values, what we're going to do is that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a story about how we did them initially at Vortex and how we refined them. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get together with your leadership team and all of your managers. And you want to go through with them vision, mission, core values. But right now we're going to focus on the core value piece and why they're important. Okay, so remember, core values are 3 to 5 things that differentiate you, that you already have as an organization. Maybe not 100% of the people have it, but your organization is defined by those behaviors, and they differentiate you, and you want to keep them, okay? So you've got to train them on what those are. You got to train the managers, and then you're going to get your managers to go to your team and say, hey, we want to have core values that get you guys lit up. Okay, we want to have core values that are authentic to us, that differentiate us. There's only going to be 3 to 5. I want to get all your feedback so that we can get your fingerprints on the core values that are ultimately going to be the thing that we really let run this place, the thing that we hire to, and not fun to talk about, but we may have to fire to. Okay. And in order for that to be the most authentic and be the best, we need your feedback. Okay, so those managers are going to get all that feedback, and that feedback is going to be all over the place. You're going to gather that feedback as a leadership team, and what you're going to start to do is you're going to start to clump feedback together. And because that's what's going to happen. People are going to say things in their language, but it's going to be kind of like, oh, people are saying that, that we're courageous, or maybe in this case with this company, you are innovative. And so people are going to have a lot of different ways to say that you're very innovative, and so on and so forth. And that's what happened to us. We had all these different clumps and groupings. Humility was one of those things. People said it a lot of different ways. But there's this idea of humility, and people are willing to pitch in and do what's ever needed to get the job done. Okay. So that you start to group those together, and then you can do maybe another round of this. And that is, you go back to your managers, you put them in all these different groupings, but you might have 15, you might have 20. We had about 120 people in our company at that point. So we had a lot. And then we had our managers go back and say, okay, here's the different themes that we're seeing. Now, what is your feedback? And then we got that feedback again. And then I got together with my dad and the leadership team, and we looked, and this took a long time, okay? It took a long time. And we grouped those even further together, and I think we got them down to around 10 or so. And then what we did is finally, it was me and my father, is we grouped into the final 5 to 6 core values. But then we did another thing. Okay, so I want you to remember this phrase, that values live in stories. Values live in stories. So I'm going to give 2 different examples of that. So remember earlier I talked to you about the different core values kind of being grouped together. And one of those groupings for us was this idea of humility, this idea of being willing to pitch in wherever, whatever was needed, and roll up your sleeve. No job was beneath you. That was kind of something that we had collectively that we still have. And in the process of going through that, a story came to mind about my father. So my father was the one that started the company, CEO, president of the company. And when we were a lot smaller, we're in Wisconsin, and we were in our old location. It was a suite of businesses and just a little parking lot that was kind of a strip. So most of the people that worked there had to park on the street. Well, if you know anything about Wisconsin in the winter, what happens is the snow plows come up, and the snow gets piled up in those medians between the parking lot and the street. Well, everybody's parking on the street, and my dad didn't want to have to walk a half mile just to get into the building. So he would get there at 3, 4 in the morning, and he would strategically shovel tunnels in the snowbanks so that wherever somebody parked, they didn't have very far to walk, that they could just walk through. Now they would be in the parking lot, and they get a much more, as the crow flies, entry point into the building. And then he would shovel the front walkway. So think about that for a minute. At the time, and we were small, but we were growing, and I think probably until we got about 100, 120 people, then we could hire some facilities people. But at the time, the president and CEO of the business is getting there early, and he's shoveling strategic tunnels, and he's shoveling the front walkway. Now, if the president and CEO is doing that, what do you think the organization is going to look like? Well, they're going to feed off of who he is and his behaviors and his values. So when we had that grouping of humility, rather than putting humility up on the wall, which again is wonderful, but often can feel like background vanilla because it's so overused. Instead, our core value became willing to shovel snow. All right, willing to shovel snow. And when we rolled that out, we obviously told the story. But of course, so many people already knew the story. So now everybody's jacked up because they got their fingerprints around this willing to shovel snow core value, and they already love my dad and love that about him, and it's authentic. So now this isn't a t-shirt, but we got t-shirts with a big a snow shovel on it. We've got a snow shovelers program. So it became a rallying cry, right? Our core values are really resonating, but it's because they're authentic. It's because they differentiate us. It's because we want to keep them. It's because there's a story associated with them. So all of those wonderful things are baked into that core value. Now, I'm going to give you an idea of where we refined our core values just a little bit. Most of them stayed the same, but we tweaked 1 or 2. And that was about 8 years later. So first round of core values, one of them was innovators. Okay. not innovation or innovative, but it was innovators. Like everybody was innovators here. And so it was a decent core value, but it didn't have a story behind it. But the other thing is that a lot of people associated innovators with the hard goods. So the rifle scopes, the binoculars, and the red dots. And absolutely, we want to be innovative with our core products. But we were also really innovative with our services. So things like our VIP warranty, our Vortex Bucks program, etc. So innovation didn't just live in NPD, new product development. It lived everywhere. And we thought innovators in people's heads just kind of pigeonholed it to just the product folks. Now, for the past 10 years previous to that, I had heard this story about Be the Buffalo. And you may have heard it, but I'm going to tell it again real quick. So the story is that in Colorado, the state's kind of divided in half by the Rockies. And these storms build up on the west side of the Rockies, and then they spill over the mountains onto the eastern plains. And Colorado on those eastern plains is very unique in the world in that it has buffalo, bison, but we're going to call them buffalo, and it has cows in the same area. Now, interestingly enough, when they both see the storms coming over, spilling over the mountains, and they react very differently. The cows see the storm, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. So the storm's coming, and the cows turn away from the storm, and they're walking away. But if you think about it, they're prolonging how long they're in the storm. Conversely, the buffalo, they see the storm coming. They turn and face the storm, and they charge it. Okay, so both are going to be uncomfortable. Both are going to be uncomfortable, but who's going to get through it quicker? Well, it's going to be the buffalo. So the buffalo is all about courage. The buffalo is all about going after something that most people aren't going to do. Most people are going to go against that. So when we were re-looking at our core values and this innovators and all the copy behind it, people were like, I think it's Be the Buffalo. I don't even think it's innovation, because in order to be an innovator, you need to have courage. In order to be an innovator, you need to be willing to go after or towards something that everybody else is going away from. Okay, so here was the cool thing. I was the one in our company who was telling that story. And my people were telling me, Joe, the core values Be the Buffalo. The core values Be the Buffalo. Now, they didn't have to twist my arm hard. I love that story. And once they kind of talked to me about it, it was like, you're right. Absolutely. So now, I mean, I didn't do this shirt. People just start making t-shirts like this here. And if you saw my office or you saw our building or our showroom, you're going to see buffaloes all over the place. Okay. So the buffalo is symbolic here. It is a rallying cry here, and it's all about courage. It's all about being innovative. It's all about, instead of going away from the storm, going right into it. And I'll tell you what, we're not perfect, but we are certainly defined by that and our other core values. And of course, now that core value has what to it? It has a story, and stories are sticky. And the buffalo image is an image that everybody can rally around. I mean, it's an American icon image, just like the eagle is. Okay, so that's what you want to do with your core values. You want to use that impact equation with your people so it's extremely authentic. If you identify something that you want to have, but you can't say that you have it, your people are not telling you that you have it, then you need to have a plan, a 12, 24-month plan with all these different things that you're going to do. Now, finally, two things I want to leave you with. But one is you got to reinforce these values, okay? You got to reinforce these values, and especially when it's hard. When it's hard. And I'm going to give a few examples of that, okay? I'm going to use the example, since we talked about them, willingness to shovel snow and also Be the Buffalo. So willingness to shovel snow. A couple years ago, we implemented a new WMS, a warehouse management system, all right? And it turned out we had to shut down shipping for a couple weeks, all right, which is not ideal to do at all. When we got ramped back up and we started to ship, as you can imagine, we were really behind, okay? And one of the things that we identified that we could use help with is we could use help from other departments. If people could lend a helping hand and go down there, we would train them to help ship, and maybe before work, after work, during work, on the weekends, could people help out? So here's the thing. One of our core values is willingness to shovel snow. The former president and CEO of the company was willing to come in at 3, 4 a.m., shovel the front walkway and shovel those tunnels so people would have an easier way to get in the building. So not everybody went over to help because we had to have other people cover other parts of the business. But what do you think the expectation was of those different departments? Was that we have volunteers. That was the expectation, that we have volunteers. The expectation wasn't going to be like, hey, man, you hired me for graphic design, and I'm kicking butt and taking names at that. You didn't hire me to ship, right? You know, that's not my job. That's not my job. You should never hear that at Vortex. That's not my job. That's not my job. Because willingness to shovel snow is a core value. And we have to lean into that core value when it's hard. And a lot of people probably were like, yeah, it's not ideal that I'm heading down there to go shipping because maybe some of my work is piling up over here. Or maybe I don't even know how to do it yet. I got to learn this new thing. But what do you think happened? Well, our team rallied. Our team rallied, and for a couple weeks, we had people early. We had people late. You know, somebody would be like, I just got done with a project. I think I can go down there. We had people on the weekend. I was here on the weekend on Saturdays, and I was grabbing, breakfast sandwiches and all kinds of stuff and bringing them in, and then I was shipping them, and then we were high-fiving in the aisles. It ended up being it actually ended up being a really great experience. I really enjoyed that. I wouldn't want to do it 24/7, 365, but I felt like there was a lot of camaraderie. Now here's another one. Let's go to Be the Buffalo. Okay, so Be the Buffalo is a core value, and it's all about courage, and it's all about leaning into difficult things, right? Let me ask you this. Should we do anonymous surveys at Vortex? Now, there's a lot of reasons that I don't like surveys, and certainly anonymous surveys, but at Vortex, if our core value is that, should we do anonymous surveys? No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. Now, your organization, that may not be your core value, and maybe you want to do anonymous surveys. Maybe we should talk because I'm not a big fan of those. But the point is that that's our core value. That's our story. We own it, and so we have to reinforce it, even and especially when it's hard. Otherwise, it's not core. Now, in addition to that, one of the areas that this really needs to show up, if you're going to do the alignment effect and hired for shared belief, oh boy, you better bake these core values into your hiring process, into those phone screens, into those interviews. Because remember, to the extent that we can get shared belief, we can get all those arrows pointed in the same direction is the extent that we can have an impact. When all the arrows are pointing in different directions, little impact. Remember, use the magnifying glass with the rays of the sun. When they're all aligned to the same point, you can start a fire, you can have impact, you can be a catalyst, all right? When the rays of the sun are all dispersed, it might be warm out, but you're not gonna start a fire. Now, if this was helpful, and I really hope it is, it's certainly been a major driver for Vortex to go from unknown, a brand new brand, to the #1 brand, the most volume in sport optics in the world. And I am proud of that, but I'm more proud about how we got there. I'm more proud of the vision, mission, and core values and shared belief driving that. And my hope is that you can deploy that in your business. But this also works for a family. This also works personally. You can have personal core values. You can have family core values. Remember, it's got to be authentic. It's got to differentiate you. Don't have too many, 3 to 5. If you have 10, I get it. You're going to come up with 10 really great things. Nobody's going to remember 10. I'm sorry, but they're not going to remember 10. All right? And finally, it's got to be authentic. Now, one of the drivers for us on all these core values, permission to play, aspirational, I did not just come up with that on my own. That's actually inspired by Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage. He is one of my favorite authors. Most of his books follow a fable on the front end and the model on the back end. This is maybe his only one that doesn't do that. It is just a model. And the reason he calls it The Advantage is because what he's saying is now in the modern era, it used to be what differentiated the advantage that differentiated organizations was knowledge that nobody else had, expertise that nobody else had, patents that nobody else had. But what he's arguing now in the modern day is that information is ubiquitous. You can go up on AI and you can get an answer right away. You can Google something, get an answer right away. You can go on YouTube and learn all kinds of things where that used to be hard to learn. Now it's easy. Now it's ubiquitous. Now it's rare. And in his book, The Advantage, what he's really arguing is that the advantage that makes certain organizations stand out is really their culture, okay? It's really their culture. And in it, he gives a framework of these core values that we adopted and we used and we deployed and has been a huge catalyst for us. So if this resonated and you want to go deeper, I would highly recommend you pick up Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage. We might even do some giveaways, so look in the show notes on this. But again, if you want to have that impact, if you want to be a catalyst, if you want to start a fire, if you want a workforce, okay, that is charged up and excited to come to work today and get it done and make incredible things happen, you're going to need alignment around shared belief, which means you need to know what you believe in. You need to know what you believe in. You need to own it, and you need to own it especially when it's hard. Listen, guys, movements are built on connection. If this resonated, share it and join the conversation. Hit that subscribe button or check the show notes where you can follow me on all my socials. Or check out more about the movement at vortexcare.com. Let's build something rare together.